Have we noticed that couples that married the year 2000 have a high tendency or probability of divorce than couples that married in the 50s, 60s, or 70s? What could be the switch? What, what could be the difference that has made divorce so high from the year 2000 up to date? Now, there is something that in my culture, as an Igbo man, in my culture, Igbo, there's something we do, and before we marry, the family of the groom sends some delegates. We call it premarital investigation. The family of the groom sends elders or delegates to go and investigate the family history of the groom, and also the family of the bride also sends delegates and elders to go investigate about the family of the bride, so vice versa. Now, the essence of this investigation or premarital investigation is to know what are the genetic historical tendencies in those families that are likely to come up in the future. And there are families that have mental illness. There are families that have high rate of divorce. They don't stay with their husbands or wives too long. There are families that have child death rate. One of the child in the family dies along the road. There are families that have tendencies of stealing, theft. There are families that has a lot of anger tendencies. So how will you know all this if you do not investigate? So the essence of this premarital investigation is to know if the bride and the groom are compatible to live too long. These were what our ancestors were doing that made their marriages last very, very long. But right now in the 21st century, or right in the modern world, we just see people, we just like them from what we see without checking their background or historical genetic background. We just marry them, and these tendencies tend to reoccur in the future, and it breaks up these marriages. And let me tell you a story, a real life story. I will tell you two real life stories, then I'll conclude. There is this man, he came home, he saw a beautiful lady, and he loved her, and he approached her, spoke with her, and they agreed to marry. So the man came to his own family, told them, I've seen a woman and I love her, and I want to marry her. And the family said, okay, bring her home, let's see who she is. So he brought her home, and the family saw her. So when the lady went back, they called their son and told him, son, this lady you want to marry, the family has a tendency of divorce. They do not stay with their husband too long. Their grandmother left her husband. Their mother left her husband. Her two sisters are home because they left their husbands. This lady will leave you if you marry her. This is a historical reoccurrence that is in the family. You cannot change it. But he was obstinate. He said she's the one, nobody else. So despite their persuasion, they said, okay. They gave in and said, okay, we'll marry her for you. We'll go ahead and follow you and do the needful. But just know that the consequences of your choice is upon your head. He said, no problem. In our adage, they say what an elder will sit down and see, a kid, even though you climb a mountain, you cannot see it. So despite the advice, he resisted. So they went ahead, he married the lady. So he took the lady off the country. He went back to the country where he settled. So they lived 2 years, had a kid, and the third year he came back home. The lady was not home. So he searched for her. He didn't see her. So he went to the police, made a report telling the police that the wife is missing, and he can't find her. And so after 1 week, he decided to call home to tell home this is what he's experiencing. And he called home. They told him, your wife just passed to go get her breakfast. We just saw her. She has been here since last week and she just passed. So then he realized that old wines are thirsty. Then he realized that the wisdom or the advice of elderly people should not be, disregarded. Now, and he has to live with the consequences. He has to live with the consequences because he was told. And this is also similar to some of the things that are happening in this world right now, where you advise the kids, and they think they've seen it all. One thing I found out is it seems like those who are ignorant are the ones who kind of claim that they've known it all. That's my experience. You give a kid a car, he's likely to crash a car. But you give someone who knows how to drive, he's likely to be more careful in driving than a kid who doesn't know how to drive. You get my point? Okay. The second story is a real life story. It's a real life event that happened. Was there is this lady. There's this lady. She's in her late 30s. So a guy saw her, and he decided to marry her, and they married. So they've lived for 5 years peacefully, and after 5 years, they were having an intense argument. So intense that she began to, she was seizure, she was epileptic, and she fell down. The guy took her to the hospital, and when he took her to the hospital, he called the family that this is what happened, that her wife is sick, but his wife is sick, and she was epileptic, seizure, and he took her to the hospital. So fortunately, the mom, the husband was talking to the father, and the mom heard it. So the mom took the phone and asked him what really happened. He said that the mom too asked the husband what happened, and the man said it was an intense argument, and she was, she was feeling epileptic, and the seizure came upon her, and she fell down, and he had to, take her to the hospital. So the mom recalled when she was about a year old, the same incident happened. When she was about a year old, she felt that seizure, the same, she felt that epileptic seizure, but uh, later it calmed down, but it never reoccurred till all these years. It never reoccurred. And after they are married, and it happened again. Now they had to start digging the family history. They found out that this is a generational stuff, but it skips one generation. If it happened to the grandfather, but in the father, on the generation of the father, it never happened to them. It skips one generation, and it keeps skipping one generation. So she was the third generation, and she was a victim of this genetic or historical historical events, or historical um, dilemma. So, and the mom told, so they had to ask people who have encountered it. They said the trigger is is pressure, intense pressure. So when this man found out that what stops this, what triggers this this genetic or historical reoccurrence is intense pressure. That was the end of intense argument in the home or in that family. Now, why am I bringing up this whole story? I'm not making this up. This is real life story. These are real life situations. Because you see someone online, you just love the person. You see someone, you just love the person, or you like the person. You don't know their historical tendencies. You don't know their historical background, their family historical, tree. You have to find out, am I willing to live with these, consequences, or this stuff when it comes up in the future? Okay, let's say there is a family I know. When they are young, they are very skinny, but when they are getting older, they are very fat. It's like in their gene. So if you are a woman and a man sees you, you are a Coca-Cola shaped bottle, he likes you the way you are. Okay, what if when you start getting fat in the future, because it's in the gene, though you could control it, but will he still love you? Will he leave you? These are some of the realities you have to face in marriages. It's really important that before you marry someone, you deep down. Let me tell you a story about myself, of what something that happened. There is this lady, very elegant, very beautiful, and I saw her, I met her, and I had to ask people who have lived in that place for 10, 15, 20 years. I asked them, do you know, nobody knew anything about this lady? No, not even one single person. I asked 3 people. No one person knows anything about this lady. She was a ghost, literally. So it was a risk to put myself in this kind of situation where nobody who has lived in this place where she has lived for the past 20, 30 years knows anything about her. I backed off. So these are some of the importance of premarital investigation, to know, are you compatible with your partner? What if this historical event begins to happen or reoccur in the future? Will you be able to handle it? Now, then my next point is, what if you've already married and you didn't do it, you didn't do your premarital investigation, and you're already married? Okay, maybe you've been experiencing some reoccurrence, some patterns reoccurring in the marriage. You need to dig deep, find out how could you prevent it, how could you navigate this pattern to the right direction. Let's say that someone comes from a history of anger. How will you be able to know the trigger so that you will be able to appease the anger or to divert the anger when it wants to come up? These are some of the issues, some of the important real life occurrences that happens in marriage that breaks some families. The Gen Z, this generation, they don't do, they just see you, they like you, they marry you. And by the time you're married, these things begins to reoccur in the marriage, and it breaks up homes and families. It breaks up families, beautiful families, and you leave the kids and the children vulnerable to this thing, this what you are supposed to have done before you had married. But if you're married, you're supposed to see, okay, what are the patterns that has been repeating in this family with my wife or with my husband? How will I navigate it so that it will not affect my generation, the coming generation, the children? This is very, very important. I found that I'm from a history of warriors and a prince. So if you slap me, if you wake me up and slap me, I'll slap you back. I'll give you double. Why? Because I found this, it keeps reoccurring. So I had to dig deep to find out, okay, these are the things that happens that these are the genetic makeup of my family. So I had to caution myself, okay, it makes me, my trigger is injustice. I hate injustice. It triggers me. So because of that, I don't look for trouble. But when you cross the red line, you wouldn't like the roaring lion in me. So why am I pointing this out? These are some of the things you're supposed to know about yourself, about your partner, about your spouse, about the family background and the historical background, so that you will not make mistakes. Do you understand? I hope this video helps you to readjust your mindset about marriage. Do not just see people because they are tall, elegant, Coca-Cola shaped bottle, beautiful and all that. They are rich, they are this, and you just jump in and marry them. Do a background checkup. There are people who have mental illness, historical background. How will you know if it will not reoccur in yours? Come on, be wise. I hope this helps you. Until next time, I bounce.